The Bored Ape Yacht Club parent company closed its TwelveFold auction last night, generating $16.5 million from its auction of 288 NFTs in its TwelveFold collection based on the Ordinals protocol. Joining us now to discuss this is Yuga Labs co-founder Greg Solano. Hi, Greg. Let's sort of get right into this. So you are one of the largest NFT companies now, jumping on the Bitcoin NFT bandwagon with this new collection. So let's just start with that. Why are you getting into the sort of Bitcoin NFT game? I mean, there's been some controversy around it. Some people love it, some people hate it. But what made you decide to sort of get into this?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Bitcoin is obviously the original L1. For most of us, it's the very first cryptocurrency that we would have bought. Certainly the first one we'd ever heard of. And I think it's really exciting to attract more developers, more people building on top of Bitcoin, potentially adding to the security budget of the chain and experimenting on it. And I think there's a lot of different ways in which, while this is incredibly nascent, having a permissionless protocol on Bitcoin for storing data, enabling the use of essentially NFTs on Bitcoin is really exciting.
So can you just talk a little bit about some of the controversies surrounding this before we get into the other stuff? I know that there's been some controversy around, for example, the way that the auction is held, and well, can you just explain to us your point of view about some of the controversies surrounding this?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the ordinal theory protocol enables a way for people to permissionlessly add, create JPEGs, NFTs on chain, on Bitcoin. The other half of that, though, that we're used to on Ethereum that doesn't exist on Bitcoin is, composability, is trustless trades, and that trustlessness doesn't exist on Bitcoin yet. There's not smart contracts. And so it was important to us to run the Bitcoin auction in a way that was as Bitcoin native as we could make it, rather than using Ethereum as a proxy settlement layer, because we wanted to, meet the ecosystem where it was. That said, this is a really nascent space. I think it's only been a little over a month since the ordinal theory protocol launched on mainnet on Bitcoin. And I think attracting more developer interests and building more trustless tools for trustlessness on Bitcoin is really exciting, and we'll be the first ones in line for it as that stuff comes online.
Right, because if I understand, the controversy was basically about taking custody, right? And taking custody and then sort of returning unsuccessful bids. And that was sort of the controversy about this not being trustless enough. I guess what I didn't understand is why was that, why were people criticizing that as being like a magnet for scammers? Is there any legitimacy to that claim?
So there's a few different marketplaces and other, for example, there's a couple different ordinal marketplaces right now. They use what's called PSBTs, or partially signed Bitcoin transactions, or they use multi-sig escrows or something like that. And I think what people maybe don't realize is, yes, you are essentially trusting this other third party. And it was important to Yuga that we weren't going to be using something that was going to be obfuscating that trust, but actually putting it front and center and explicit on the nature of what was happening. So that we could set the best precedent that we could, given the constraints of running a trustless auction on Bitcoin. That it simply isn't really possible at this stage.
But do the critics have a point that you might be opening the door, or at least showing the way for scammers to do something that could ultimately steal a lot of Bitcoin from people who, let's face it, a lot of people aren't really that savvy when it comes to their NFT auctions?
That's exactly why it was important to us to not do this as PSBTs, not do this in a way that obfuscates what's happening. If you're sending your Bitcoin away to a wallet, obviously you are no longer in possession of it. Some of these things, these marketplaces that are run on escrows and nobody knows who that is. Obviously, I think this only works because Yuga is a trusted party, and we could be depended on in this way. I don't think it's not something I would recommend to others.
Also want to touch up on, Blur coming onto the market as a new NFT trading platform. It's been seeing huge trading volumes. What do you make of that compared to the competition, which is now seeing OpenSea less of a dominant player compared to this new platform?
Yeah, it's been a very busy couple months, I think, in the NFT marketplace wars. I think for Yuga's perspective, we're marketplace agnostic, except for the fact that we strongly believe in creator royalties, and want to see marketplaces stand by creators, as that's what's driven so much of the growth of the ecosystem over the last 2 years. And so we find it problematic that there's a race to the bottom here between different marketplaces, with less and less of them honoring creator royalties to the full extent, such as Rarible or X2Y2, X.XYZ, or others.
So just one of the interesting points about Blur is that some people attribute it to the recent kind of NFT surge. NFTs have been a relative bright spot in not a great market. Do you agree with that? Do you think like some of the resurgence in NFT activity has been due to Blur, or are there other things that are driving up the NFT market?
No, I would put the NFT market as or just NFTs in general, it's just like an exciting thing that people like to engage with. We're proud of the products that we make, and the level of engagement and interaction that we see across our ecosystem with everything that we're making is I think speaks for itself. With Dookie Dash, our recent game competition, we saw an incredible amount of engagement and people playing for days and days at a time, it felt like, over the 21-day competition. And actually, the sewer passes associated with that collection, the NFTs associated with that collection, were actually restricted from Blur originally because they were following the OpenSea Core standard. So I certainly wouldn't attribute the success of our recent success in NFTs to Blur in any way.
Sorry, I didn't mean your recent success. I meant overall NFT success, not your success specifically, just to be clear what I meant.
Greg, I know you got a limited time here, but just one last question. Where do you see the Bored Ape Yacht Club community headed going forward, in terms of development, creating more community incentives to engage, et cetera?
Yeah, I would say as a whole, Yuga and Bored Ape Yacht Club included, we're extremely bullish on Web3 gaming. It's evidence from our recent success with Dookie Dash and some of the leadership that we've been bringing on to the team. We have Daniel Allegre joining us from Activision Blizzard next month. And our CGO, Spencer Tucker, who joined us from Scopely, has been an incredible addition to the team. And we're really excited about some things that we have coming for BUIC in the coming months in that space, but also, other side. We have our second trip coming this month, and we're planning on doubling the concurrency that we saw with first trip and adding new mechanics and environments and characters. So we really feel like Web3 gaming is tied to the future of Yuga.
Awesome. All right, Greg, thank you for joining us. That was Yuga Labs co-founder Greg Solano. Yuga Labs CEO Daniel Allegre will be speaking at Consensus 2023 in Austin, Texas, April 26th through the 28th. Tickets are still available on consensus.coindesk.com.